guys, Rod Estrid. Okay, so today's an LOE. Rod, when did you last fly?
I did a trip to Dalaman 2 weeks ago and had time off, and now I'm back in to do my LOE.
Okay, and Astrid?
I just started a flight yesterday to Palma.
Good, so sounds like you're both recent and current. So before we start into the LOE, could I just check your licences, please? Or pass them over to me and I'll check them in a little while. Thank you very much. Line-orientated evaluation. This is similar to a line check in the simulator, and I'll be effectively the line check captain for today. So what we'll be looking at is a number of events, and within those events I'll be able to choose sort of sub-events effectively, and with those we'll be able to assess how pilots are reacting with the threats and errors that we see and how they manage those risks. We'll also be covering a number of events in the briefing to see to check on your knowledge, etc. Any questions so far?
No, it's fine, thank you.
No, I'm fine.
Okay, so in today's LOE, the auto-throttle is going to be unserviceable. So how will this affect you? Rod?
I can't really see any issues. I've flown for over 20 years without any autopilot and auto-throttle. I can't see being any problems.
And Astrid?
Well, there could be many issues, from monitoring due to low arousal state to considering thrust settings at different phases of flight to go-rounds. We need to be alert.
Good point. Well done. Yes.
Excellent. So it sounds like you're well set up as a crew to deal with the unserviceable auto-throttle. We've also seen some issues with icing recently, sometimes from tanking into a destination and also sometimes with hoarfrost on the top of the wing. So what is the limit that we're allowed on the underside of the wing? Rod?
Well, obviously I always check the aircraft when I do a walk round, and I would always be very concerned if I would generally make sure there's no frost.
No frost at all?
No, I would just make sure the airplane is alright as far as the frost is concerned.
So what sort of limit would we put onto that then?
Just as long as it's reasonable.
Astrid, is that correct?
A build-up of 3 millimeters is the acceptable limit.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Good. And what about on top of the wings, if we had some frost on top of the wings?
As you said earlier, if you've been tanking or if you've spent a long time at high altitude, the frost will almost certainly show the outline of the fuel tanks, and that must be de-iced and cleared before you proceed.
Good, excellent. Well done. One other area that we again have threats to is circling approaches. So what is the protected area for a Cat C aircraft? Astrid?
An arc of 4.2 nautical miles from each runway threshold.
Do you agree with that, Rod?
Oh, the figure of 3.7 comes to mind. I was thinking that would be the...
It's 4.2 nautical miles.
4.2? 5.2?
5.2, that's interesting. So what would 5.2?
Oh, that must be for the Cat D aircraft.
So 767? Right. And is it 5.2? Astrid?
I think so.
It's 5.28 nautical miles.
Okay, so we have 5.28 nautical miles for a Cat D aircraft and 4.2 nautical miles for a Cat C. Okay, good. Right, to summarise today, this is an LOE from Gatwick to Dalaman. It's a constituted crew, so as a constituted crew you operate normally and you make the decision who's going to be pilot flying and pilot monitoring. So have you made that decision?
I don't mind at all. What would you
Yeah,
like to do?
happy to start?
Yes, Astrid can start. Thank
Okay, so Astrid, you're pilot flying. So as a crew, you've got to make a decision on the fuel, and once you've made that decision, if you let me know what it is, and I will put that fuel into the tanks for you.
you. Do you have the flight plan?
Yeah,
handy?
sure.
Thank you.
As experienced TRIs, TREs and senior examiners, very often we make our first judgments of a crew's ability in the simulator through both technical and non-technical skills in the first probably 15 minutes of a briefing. So today what I've witnessed so far is that the technical skills or technical knowledge of Astrid and Rod appear to be very different. Astrid appears to be technically pretty competent. Rod seems to have forgotten quite a lot of the technical knowledge, and this could potentially lead to an authority gradient or misgradient in the simulator when we go in there.
Go fast, Astrid.
Yeah.
Got to bring the thrust
Yeah.
back. Oh, what's that?
Right generator of QRH.
Okay, if you have a look, you've got right AC bus as well. That's a better drill. That'll cover both of those failures. If we do that, I'm sure it's be better to do.
Well, are you sure it's the right AC bus?
I believe so. If you see there, I'll show you in the checklist.
I think it's the right generator.
It is also the bus failure, I think, is the criterion here. Let's have a look. So page 6.1, right AC bus not powered. Right, here we are, gen control switch, off then on. That's the one that you're saying has failed. It's off and then on. That appears to be coming back. Make sure that's all right. No, that has failed. That right gen is off. Only when reset is allowed, so that can go off. And it now goes, if APU is available, go to step 3, which is start APU, start then on. When the APU is running, we then do the buzz tie switches. So we're waiting on the APU. So we're waiting for the APU here. When the APU is running, we then start to reset the AC buses. We've got no status, so we've got to wait for this APU run light. Should be up in about another 20-30 seconds. Choose one, both bus lights. Right. So we've got to now choose one.
What did you start it?
Yes, it's running, should be. Select the there. Ah, there's the APU running, and the next step is attempt one reset only, left buzz tie switch off, then auto buzz tie switch off, then auto, there we go, attempt one reset, right buzz tie switch off, then auto, stick shaker recover, lower the nose, bust, there we go. .210, back to 220 then.
Okay, I've just come out of the simulator and about to conduct the debrief. What I witnessed in the simulator was an LOE event where the stick shaker occurred. On the face of this, it appeared to be ineffective monitoring. But what I want to do in the debrief through facilitation is to find out the root cause of this ineffective monitoring. Okay, well done Rod Astrid, pass your LOE today. Having said that, we did need to retest one item, and that item was the stick shaker that went off during the AC buzz event. And the stick shaker went off through the lack of the monitoring of the safe path of the aircraft. What we did later on is we looked at a flap slat problem on the approach, which you dealt with very well and you monitored very effectively. So that's why we passed the overall LOE. So what I'd like to do now is to be discussion based, debrief, where we interact and you guys interact with each other as well. And we want to look at things that worked particularly well and those items that you would like to improve on for next time. So where would you like to start?
Well, I of course would like to talk about that stick shaker event.
Okay, so let's go to the stick shaker event. What I'd like you to do is to discuss it between yourself as to why it occurred.
You were pilot flying at that instance. How do you feel it occurred?
Well, I was kind of distracted. I was trying to cross-check what you were doing at that stage and I wasn't monitoring the speed.
Okay, were you monitoring what I was doing? Because I was going through the checklist.
Yes.
I was trying to show you the checklist and show you that each stage was being accomplished as per the steps in the checklist. Was that no good for you? Did you not feel that you were involved and you were part of the team doing the checklist?
Yeah, well, yes, kind of. I mean, I'm sorry, really. I guess it's because of the brief. You were answering these questions kind of not very precise. So I was unsure about your ability, I guess.
Oh, I see. That reflected on how you felt I was doing things at other times. I'm sorry, but when I checked some of the details prior to the briefing, the first page I printed off was in fact in kilometres rather than nautical miles. So
I
that
see.
caused me to be a bit apprehensive when I responded in the briefing. But I was trying to include you and show you the checklist and show that we were doing it together because I felt that you wanted to monitor what I was doing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would have felt a lot more comfortable with you doing the QRH when you had answered these questions really precisely, but I mean, now I know why you didn't kind of got confused with that, so you really...
Okay, so let's go to the QRH drill that you went to, Rod. You decided to go to the AC buzz rather than generator off, which actually shows a good level of system knowledge in reality, and you probably saw that later, Astrid. So what I would say about your QRH is you held it up in front of you.
I tried to show Astrid I was doing everything she appeared to want to know, that I was going properly through the checklist step by step.
So were you monitoring the flight path of the aircraft?
Obviously not, otherwise I hope the event would not have occurred. I was concerned that we did the checklist correctly and paying attention to the fact Astrid seemed to want to look to see what I was doing.
Well, how were you holding it?
I was holding it quite high and across so that we could both read it because I knew Astrid was really concentrating on each action that I was doing.
And what other effect do you think this had?
So that we could both read it.
Okay.
I see your point now. It was exactly in front of the instruments and I wasn't able to see the airspeed indicator past the checklist.
Absolutely. So what would you do in the future?
Hold it much lower and concentrate more on the monitoring of the flight and doing the checklist in the correct order.
Good. So looking at the checklist, monitoring the aircraft, going back into the checklist.
Time sharing and making sure the monitoring is done correctly. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Good. What about you then, Astrid? Because you said that you weren't really sure about Rod in the brief and his accuracy of the questions, but he actually dealt very well with that QRH with regard to choosing of the drill and showed his level of knowledge. So how would you deal with that one next time?
Well, I guess I shouldn't have judged him in the briefing and just waited and see how we get along in the simulator.
Okay, and from your side, Rod, you can see how your interaction with Astrid, and I could see the body language in the briefing, that she was looking at you as a little bit questioning as to why you didn't know some of those answers. So
really? I didn't know.
Okay, so how could you deal with that so that you have the complete trust, I suppose, of the other crew member?
I don't know, but perhaps when I'm faced with questioning like that in the flight deck or concerned, perhaps be open and ask or conduct it differently so that we can work together.
Okay, very good. So that would make these items a little bit easier. And if we look at our behavioural markers today, one of the items we looked at in that event would be under adherence to procedures, where monitoring skills were erratic. Would you say that would be the case in that particular event? Okay, and that's in the sort of fail area there. But having said that, when we got to the flap slat later on, that moved well up into the good area of adherence to procedures. So what other behavioural markers would you...
I was going to ask from the subsequent exercise we did in the simulator, how was the teamwork? What did you see while we were doing that? Did you feel you were involved?
Well, later on, yes, of course. I mean,
fine. So hopefully that removes the problem and allows us to work together in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And it seems like now, having discussed this, you probably work very well together in the future and have a lot more trust between you. Is that the case?
Yes,
yeah,
certainly.
Absolutely.
Good, excellent. Well, while we were on that stick shaker event, what did actually work well?
Well, the recovery, I guess.
Yes, you recovered straight away.
Yeah, got some good call-outs by you.
Okay,
about
thank
the
you.
speed.
Yeah, sure.
Good. So yes, it was a good recovery, but obviously in a situation that we don't want to get ourselves into in the first place. Okay, so to summarise, what would you take away from today's LOE to the simulator next time, or to your line flying?
Well, I would certainly not forget that my primary role as pilot flying is to fly the aircraft, and also not to kind of prejudge someone when not answering correctly the first time.
Excellent, well done Astrid. And for you, Rod?
Emphasis on monitoring skills while doing other functions, and obviously if I see some concerns on the other side of the flight deck, perhaps not during a drill but at another time, be open and ask what the problem is and be able to discuss it beforehand.
Good, and probably one more item to add there would be level of knowledge, to show that level of knowledge in briefing and being able to raise that game, and that will affect, possibly, you saw how today it affected some of the non-technical skills and behaviour across the cockpit, so good.
Certainly.
Well done. As instructors and examiners, we need to comply with the requirements of EASA AMC 1 FCL 920, Instructors' Competence and Assessment. It's really important that the CRM assessment begins in the briefing phase and the instructor is able to dig deep into the knowledge of the candidates. The first clues in the briefing did actually materialise in the simulator, so the body language of the two trainees was really important in understanding where they were probably going to go to when we got to the simulator side of it. In the example we saw today, we witnessed poor monitoring skills from both pilots. We have shown how important it is to identify the root causes using a facilitative approach. This approach should be used both in the brief and the debrief. Listening skills are a key part in facilitation. Linking the witness body language of the pilots in the briefing room to the breakdown in non-tech skills in the flight is a very powerful display of observation and will be readily recognised by the crews because it was what they were thinking. For the captain, it would have been a very serious wake-up call. Recognising the positives and always ensuring that you look for good behaviour and through praise will reinforce for the future, and this is vitally important. The most important outcome is the lessons learned that the two pilots are going to take away and apply to their flights.